All right, here we go. All right. Welcome to On My Block. This is a Green Bay Packers podcast. Myself, Ahman Green, is your host, along with my good friend and former teammate, Mike Wahle. Man, how you doing?
I'm great. Hey, we're live from the closet today, AG. So thanks for sticking with me, man. I got a closet episode.
Man, I'm gonna stick with you no matter what. You know, a closet, a shanty, wherever you at, wherever I'm at, it don't matter.
That might be next week, man. The way things are going.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, you remodeling there at the house. So wherever you at, I got you. Just like you had me when we played here in Green Bay. So let's so from last week's show, I had basically had to watch the game through my phone. I helped my kids move down in your neck of the woods down in Arizona. So got them all moved in and putting together desks and tables and all day. But I was still catching the game, like getting hints of the game, you know, and watching Aaron, watching AJ, watching Devontae, watching all the players play their game. But got the kids moved in. They're all in now. Of course, it was for mom, you know, I don't know. When I cry, it just doesn't come easy. So for me, it was more hugs. Hey, now you're ready to go into that transition of life. You're an adult now. You're on your own. There's no family down here. You know, I'm telling both my daughter and my son this, and mom, they're boo-hooing. You know, this is the way I am. I was like, it's hard for me. It got to be something. I don't know what.
It has to be. How many times have you cried in front of your kids?
I could count on one hand, at least 5. At least 5 times in front of my kids, because they say that.
I cried in front of my kid. And I'll probably divulge it at some point in our deal here, but I cried in front of my kid for the first time ever this week.
Okay.
And both of my kids are like, "You did what?" like what happened? It was nuts. It was nuts. Just say I never do. I'm just not. I don't have that. Yeah. I don't have that gene for some reason. No, unless it's like a sad. If it's a sports movie, man, I'm Waterworks. I am Waterworks.
Potentially, yeah, for me, sports movie. Obviously, anything when we were playing from college to pro is a game that we know, a big game like we mention this game all the time, the 4th and 24 or 26 game. You know that game. You talk about that. I'm on the edge. I'm on the edge. Right there.
Yeah, that's like tearing off. That's like tearing the armrest off the seat edge, right?
Right.
Like I'm not looking at it. I'm not crying after that. I'm just like, especially games like that. You're like, man, I want to go play another quarter. Like we didn't finish that game right.
Right. You know? Exactly. Yeah. So we're back home now. We literally just landed like an hour ago down in Appleton. Got on up here. Mother-in-law picked us up, and now back in the seat doing this thing. And you are doing it from your closet. Explain to everybody why you're doing it from the closet.
Yeah, so listen, we moved to Austin and we got into this house, and my wife and I wanted to redo the floors, and they literally called us like a couple of days ago, the night before, and they're like, "Hey, we'll be there tomorrow," and we got a demo. We have blah 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 blah. There's jackhammers going everywhere. I basically, this is the only place in the house that I can shut 3 doors, and so you guys can't hear the noise. Otherwise, it sounds like I'm in damn Thunderdome the rest of the house, man. It's insane. I've been taking walks. I'm like trying to do anything to get out of the house. I'm like, anybody wants to, Aaron, you want me to go to the post office? Oh, I'll go. Let me go. I'll do anything right now to get out of the house. Dude, it's driving me insane. I can't work in here. My office looks like it's all dust everywhere. It's nuts. I mean, first class problems, but it's
first world problems.
First world problem. That's right. But golly, man, it's bothering me.
Gotcha. I haven't been down that road, the remodeling road, yet. We're thinking about moving maybe next year or the year after that, but no remodeling stories for you right there. But what we did get to watch a remodeling of is the Packers going into the AFC playing the Bengals in was it John Brown Stadium out there in Cincinnati, something like that.
Paul Brown or John
Paul Brown? Paul Brown. You're right, Paul Brown Stadium. And you see a young up and coming quarterback in Joe Burrow, who actually has some connections with a lot of stuff because of his coaches. His dad was a coach. I think he coached at Nebraska or did something in Lincoln, because I remember I was there a couple of weeks ago and somebody brought his dad name up that he coached on the staff, I think back in the 80s or something, but then became an NFL scout and bounced around the NFL. And obviously Joe, being a ball boy growing up, being around pro players through his childhood, and obviously getting into LSU, Ohio State, LSU, his journey. Guys were kind of telling me that story. But watching the game, I see a team obviously still in that incline mode of getting better and better week by week, but going against a solid team in the Bengals. I mean, a lot of people during the week, if you watch all this, all the sports talk show, they said the same thing. Packers going to come in to Paul Brown Stadium and beat the Bengals handily, things of that nature. I'm like sitting in my head like, nah, it's not going to be easy. I've watched the Bengals play since week one. Joe Burrow, Mixon, Chase doing phenomenal things as young players. Chase, for one, right now being a rookie, but a wide receiver, between wide receiver and running back, I know for sure those are positions that can transition pretty easy into the NFL speed of the game. So Jamar Chase right now, he's making things look very easy at the wide receiver position, and did so in the game. And I say for the first score for the Packers, or one of the first scores, early scores, A.J. Dillon. If I'm a running backs coach, like I just mentioned right before we started the show here, A.J. Dillon, great catch, got his hips turned, caught the ball clean, tucked it. Drop your shoulder pads, young man, because he goes into the end zone and it's a corner or a safety, blows him up. So as a running back coach, I'm like, if he runs once he runs to the sideline, I'll be like, hey, high five, boom, touchdown. You didn't fumble, good job. You took a hit. Get your pass low, young man. That's all that's the only correction.
He's got this burden of being a giant too, so people expect him to run through everything. There was a couple times in the game, and it's probably been during the season, where you think he's just going to run through these tackles, and like a little guy will take him down. And the truth is, little guy's making a good tackle, but we just, because he's Quadzilla is 250 pounds, you just think he's going to run through everything, but that's just not the case. And he probably big guys fancy themselves nimble, right? Whereas little guy like Aaron Jones, Aaron Jones he'll duck his head now. He'll run right. Yeah, he'll fall forward. Yep. So it's just funny how those guys always look. I think for me, the Bengals are, I mistakenly called it a trap game because that's not giving them enough respect. But it feels like it's one of those games where, and I really do think it played out this way. If you watch the way we talked about last week, the Rams playoff game last year versus the game plan for the Bucs, or the way the game plan played out. This is one of those games where offensively for the Green Bay Packers, you're just scratching your head. They run 4, 5, 6 plays in a row to start the game, and then it fizzles out. And the rest of the game, it just felt like, and you can watch it on there, one, we're targeting Devontae Adams a ton, okay? And so a lot of things are deeper routes, and they got to run a guy through, and Aaron's holding the ball a long time because we're all running these 5-7 step drops. And it's just, that's not really where we're at, especially with all the guys that we have hurt up front.
It puts a lot of strain on offensive line.
It puts a lot of strain on the offensive line. It puts a lot of strain on Aaron Rodgers. I know he could shoulder it, but at the same time, you could feel in the game where there was going to be some big shot plays, and there were, but it's going to be an inefficient game. And I think if you look at the Packers this season versus last season, one of the things that stands out is their efficiency first and second down is way, way down than where it was last year. I think we were number 2 rushing and passing last year, and now we're 25th, 28th or something like that. So we aren't as efficient, and part of that to me is the way that they're calling the game. But my hat's off obviously to Cincinnati. I think on the line of scrimmage, I think both sides kind of brought it. Cincinnati's offensive line, I think they started out playing well. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but you start going into those matchups, you start talking about, you're talking about Chase, the second play of the game, dude, we got Preston Smith out there playing in the slot against Chase, and he catches that dig route. You're like, wait, what are we doing? Right. Let's not get this guy's confidence up, right? And I know Stokes and Chase played against, I think, against each other in college, and this was the game where you're like, okay, this is where Stokes needs to get better, right? He looked hesitant, he was kind of off script a little bit, his principles of play, his principles of coverage didn't line up always with what we were trying to do as a defense. Whether we're because we're pressuring, whether we're sticking to 2, but we have to cover that secondary corner route. If nobody's coming up front, there's just some things during the game where you're like, man, you could stick that a little tighter. We gotta, and then we gotta make tackles when the guy makes the reception. There's just some things where still a little bit hesitant. And I think in that matchup, obviously most people would say that that Chase had the better of the day, but I'm sure
Yeah.
the guys will be playing together for a long time.
Exactly. And like Stokes, they're probably into a position mindset, being a rookie and basically starting. Sometimes just resort, if you can't remember the play call that the whoever's calling the plays in the defensive huddle, he's going to go resort to what he learned when he was at college, how he plays man coverage, if it's tight or if it's soft. Like you said, those situations where he should have been tighter, in a third and long or third and short, but knowing that, okay, if I give him some ground or leeway, he's going to hit that route. Burrow's going to hit his guy on the third leg planning into that slant route. So I need to be here, but he was there. He's being off. He's being soft covered instead of hard covered. Just those little things that he'll get as a rookie, and maybe second guessing himself, like thinking too much about what the play call was. So it's just those little things that, like I said, that's why I said what I said in the beginning. The team, getting there. They're winning these games, but barely. But the teams that they're beating are good teams. Obviously, they're well coached. I say more talented. I say the Bengals probably as talented as any other team in the NFL, but obviously young and has a lot of things they got to learn moving forward.
Yeah, and they're definitely talented at the skill positions, right? Like you can see where there's some deficiencies maybe in the offensive defensive line, but 96. So 96 is their like backup defensive end. And he came in, when he played inside, he caused problems for us. He caused some real, he had some great pressures.
Yes,
he had our guys on skates a couple of times. And, the other thing we got to talk about is like in the run game, we've been using some wide receivers, right? 13's been coming down a lot, getting that backside play.
Yes.
He's leading on those toss zones. Man, they tried to give old 19 motion man responsibilities. What's his name? St. Brown?
Aquemini.
Yeah, okay. He did not want that. He did not want that. Okay, so
it's Lazard. It's Lazard.
No. So Lazard's our guy,
yes.
Right? He's good for that, man. I think it's St. Brown. 19.
It's St. Brown. Yeah, you're right.
If we were having tryouts for like who's going to do that number 2 if Lazard's hurt, man, we got to move on. We got to find somebody else. He was not about that life at all.
And that surprises me because watching Aquemini and St. Brown during preseason, he was on special teams, and you see him just giving half effort because special team guys, they're a little off, and that okay, this is especially if you're one of those wide receivers or them running backs, I got to make the team here. This is my job. So if I'm not giving 100% on every special team play, and I was watching him through preseason, and then boom. We talked about him in the first podcast. He was cut, and because that effort wasn't there. And so for a guy, I'm like, why would they put a guy they know that doesn't? He only wants to show up when the ball is his way, when he's already in the end zone, when the coverage guy then failed and slipped down, and then it's a touchdown. He's one of those guys. He's not going to put work together, working on his routes the whole game, and then finally work the guy where he knows he got him on a dig or he has them on a deep corner route or something like that. But to put him in that position to obviously pick up blocks, I'm like, okay, even though he has to, I say he's tall. He doesn't have, I don't think he has the muscle to actually deal with that type of
I was going to ask you, is it because listen, we know, right? We talked about this before many times on this show.
Yeah.
Players know if he's in or not. Like, are you committed or not? Right. And if he's not committed, is he one of those guys that just has the physical attributes? So upstairs, they're like, man, we got to get this guy right. Like, this is where you go inside the helmet a little bit, inside the organization. This is where sometimes there's a disconnect between the guy who's buying the groceries and the guy who's making dinner. Right.
Correct.
Sometimes they're like, hey, listen, you got to get sense right. To me. Hey, I'll never forget. We had a guy in Miami, man. He came down and he said, listen, all these guys are 21, 22-year-old. They're unmolded clay, guys. They're unmolded clay. We got to teach them how to act and who to be. And we're sitting there like, man, they're 21 and 22 years old. What the hell are you talking about? Unmolded clay. These guys are who they are. Now we can make them better versions of themselves. We can make them more technical. We can up their intelligence. But if you're a dickhead at 21 years old, guess what, man? I'm not going to make you a good guy all of a sudden. You're not going to have work ethic all of a sudden just because I touched you somehow. Like I got into I pulled on your heartstrings. Like if you're that guy, man, you're that guy. Like I'm not saying there's not reclamation projects in the world. That's not what I'm saying. But if your philosophy as like a general manager is like, oh man, we can kind of coach that out of them. No, you cannot. No, you cannot.
No, you are who you are when you are 21, 22, 23 years old. Very few people at that age, guys and girls, will just make a 180 turn. Be like, all right, now it's a whole other person. It got to be something phenomenal in their life to do that. So somebody that I see you got Kevin King on here talking about him, and he I think right now he's in a secondary role.
Yep.
And I think that secondary role is opening his eyes up. They're like, oh, now, because when you get basically demoted, in other words, because he was the starter the last couple of years as a first round pick, kind of like where Eric Stokes is at now. But once that demotion happens to where you only coming in on certain packages, that kind of wakes you. I hope this wakes him up to get to be more aware out there, because we know the plays that basically brought out questions about his awareness, or if that was coaching on the other end. Obviously last year, what I'm referring to is the NFC Championship game against Tampa Bay, getting beat over top at the end of the half. So plays like that, puts him in the position now. So, hopefully the games and the plays that he made, I saw him in the game, sparingly, but it gets him to a point, okay, I need to start focus more, getting that playbook and watch more film, working on my technique.
Well, listen, Alexander's going to be out. We don't know how long, right?
That too.
They're still talking about that. So he's going to get that chance, right? He's going to get a chance to come back in and prove himself. And listen, to his credit, he learned. He was getting beat, right? And he just said, hey, listen, this game, I'm going to play a little bit off and I'm going to make tackles. He came down and made tackles.
Yes, he did.
And it's always like when this happens in every sport. When things are going bad and you don't know why, it just feels like you're driving a car on ice, man. Like you're hitting that wheel, you're hitting the gas and the brakes, man, nothing's working. And you gotta you have to find something like, okay, what do I know I can do? Like, what can I hang my hat on right now?
Yes.
Like in basketball, it's like, if I can't shoot, man, I know I can play defense, right? If I'm a defensive back and I'm having a hard time covering on press, or the coach is gonna just say, hey, listen, I'm gonna put you back. You got to make tackles. He stepped up and made those tackles. So he's got to come out of this game feeling like, man, I took a step forward today. And that, if they can do that with him over the next couple games, that's not only huge for Kevin King, because it's not like we're not rooting for the guy, right?
It's better for the team too.
It's better for the team. Exactly.
Because I remember my first, I could go back to Little League and remembering getting thrown at cornerback. Only my brother had told me a few little tips. The only thing he pretty much said, if I jump for the ball, I better catch it, and don't let nobody get behind you. So that was my 2 DB tips from my older brother, okay? Outside of that, no foot technique, nothing taught, nothing shown. So I'm just relying on pure talent here, Mike. And
I think you probably would have been all right, though.
I was all right. All right. I would get beat off the break. So if a guy was running a slant or a corner, obviously he'll beat me off the break, but with my speed, I would make it up and then catch up to him. But I was getting, I wasn't a tall DB, this was Little League. So I had a couple like JJ Stokes guys over me. Like if I was like 5'2" or 5'3" in Little League, these kids were like close to 6 feet. So, but I knew, and by mid-season, I knew this. I said, okay, my technique, I know my feet. I said, my footwork, I would tell me this, even though I was young, I said, my footwork is not where it needs to be. I said, but there's no guy that's going to outrun me. After he catches that ball, he's going to get hawked down, or I'm going to blow him up when he catches the ball. I get hit. So it was like you said with Kevin, I know I could do this. Just focus on this little thing, because then as you get more confidence, then everything else will start coming along. You start, peeping tips off the quarterback, like, oh, okay, he's looking at, he's trying to, look me off, or he's trying to no-look me or whatever. Then the other part of the game comes along too, when you get that confidence level there and starting with the stuff that you already got in the back pocket, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people underestimate just how intelligent a Richard Sherman is. I'm talking about, he's an intelligent guy either way, but football intelligence. Yeah, I think people underestimate how intelligent a Richard Sherman is. Guy was, great, long, lean body type, not that fast, but best DB in the league for years and years and years, right? Because he could do 2 things really well: read offenses and tackle, right? He could do those things very, very well. And that's what we call sporting intelligence. And it just doesn't come naturally. Like, it's something you really have to work at. So I listen, like you said, he's if Kevin King could become a professional in every sense of the word, the Green Bay Packers are gonna be that much better off. He's gonna be that much better off. So, we're looking at it that way. The last thing I had, AG, is everyone's talking about Joe Burrow, and certainly he's one of those young guys that's going to collect a lot of accolades along the way. He's going to get a lot of attention
because of LSU,
the draft.
His prestige he's got
the pedigree. He's smart. He's got the
Heisman Trophy winner, all that stuff, everything.
He's got some talent. I wasn't impressed with the game just in general yesterday. I mean, we haven't even talked about the whole, poor Mason Crosby. Thank God he got a chance to make another kick, but I wasn't really impressed with the way that either side was executing. And you look at, there's a couple of things that Joe Burrow did that he showed how tough he was and how game he was for it. Like, he got folded in half.
Yeah,
he got folded in half once. He ran for a couple first downs on fourth, but you look at it like, if I think it was Savage misses that pick on the 70-yard touchdown, right? And the whole game is just different after that. And there's a couple plays here and there where, because, maybe it was Stokes off and we're missing tackles. And again, these guys are pro athletes and we know how difficult it is to execute in these situations. But I think if we stay in front of our guys, make our tackles, and just make the plays that we're supposed to make, this is probably not as much of a game. Like, to their credit though, you got to show up, you got to make plays. Bengals defense did a good job. So, overall it was just, you're glad you get a win, but you also, this is one of those games we come out of and it's like, you're relieved that you won, but you don't feel really good about it.
Right. I mean, because you talk about that play, that 70-yard completion from teammate to teammate, LSU Tiger teammates there, Burrow to Chase, and you see Savage, and as a DB, like I said, my brother told me that one of them rules: don't let the receiver get behind you. And the situation. It's late second quarter. So basically, going into halftime, I can't remember on the clock, but I know it's just seconds on the clock as the ball was thrown. And it's like, why is he, for one, why is he behind you? And then he panicked because you just leave your feet and he's hoping to hit that ball. He didn't leave his feet. Like, if he tracked the ball, he's leaving his feet with his hands out, like, I'm about to catch this thing. That's how close his hands were.
Yeah.
If he didn't panic,
like it went right through him.
Right, it did. It basically, the ball, like, it's right here and it goes right through the middle. If he doesn't panic, that's a pick or definitely incomplete. So he completely panicked, saying, all right, let me just jump and I hope I get some. I hope I hit the ball. I hope I tackle him. So that was
he's made a lot of plays for the Green Bay Packers.
So he panicked.
And we it's like weren't we the kings of the scramble drill? Like, the defense got to run that stuff too. Like,
when I watch every game, not just this game. Yeah. The games we're going to talk about later. We're talking about the Seahawks game because you got Russell Wilson, you got Justin Fields with the Bears, you got Jalen wasn't it with the Eagles running around. Of course, Pat Mahomes and the kid from Wyoming at the Bills quarterback, Josh Allen. That's what we did. We created. I remember doing scramble drill 3-4 times a week, and I see that's kind of like the norm now in the NFL. A drill that started as, oh, you know what, we did this during the game just off of playing, basically, like, because we all play street ball. We might as well just, influx this into actual NFL professional.
I'm pretty sure that was the Seahawks offense last year. Like, I think that let Russ cook was literally like, okay, we don't even have routes called. Just run over there and do something.
Just get open.
It was nuts.
It was nuts. So,
offensive line nightmare. Oh, I hate it. Offensive line nightmare. Oh.
I know y'all do, because I was back there sometimes too, trying to hold on to my linebacker or stay in front of him. Like, Brett, let's go. Let's get that ball out. I'm like, I was like, these guys are not going to be happy with him when we get back to the huddle. He's there, not Mike and Marco. Ooh,
hey, man, listen. Hey, here's one for you. We lose to the Rams, St. Louis Rams, in like second round of the playoffs.
Yeah,
I left like a pint of blood on the 2-yard line, trying to dive after Aeneas Williams for like one of his 3 touchdowns, right, on interception, pick sixes.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll never forget, dude. We were. There's 2 things that were so funny about that game. One, I think he threw 5 picks, and Brett was like, "I don't give a shit. I'll throw 17 today. We ain't going down." Like, and we're like, yeah, yeah. And then we're all the lineman, and then he goes, "All right, Fox 2 all go." And I just remember Marco was like, "Shit," because the Fox 2 men, they were sliding left, and he's like, "Ah!" It's like
We're
again.
overloaded. Oh man,
Oh,
yes,
that
that
man.
was
I
a
feel for you,
nightmare.
bro.
That was a nightmare game, yeah. Because I remember one of the passes, it was a little high, and it ended up tipping off my fingers and going to Aeneas on one of
I
them
remember that.
things.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh
yeah. I
my
think
god.
that was. I lost my first half pint of blood on that play, I believe.
Yeah, I was like, no,
That old
man.
turf, man. Oh, that tore you up.
Yeah, that was an
Woo!
oh yeah. That was that stuff that some of these kids don't even know what that is. That would basically change your life if you fell wrong on it, which a lot of, like, we both experienced. Totally a foot of skin gone
Bro,
on elbows or knees.
did you know that was concrete underneath there? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yes,
Wait,
I
I
knew.
mean, I knew it intuitively, but I'll never forget. Man, we went to the Pontiac Silverdome for a Thanksgiving game. This is like 1999, 2000, and we roll in for a walkthrough, and they're literally rolling the carpet out, and it wasn't like they were rolling a pad out, dude. It was a slab of concrete, and they just rolled this freaking quarter-inch thick AstroTurf pad, and all of us are like,
the fake grass.
all of us are like, holy shit. I thought there was a pad. I thought there was something underneath there.
No,
Like,
see, I knew that. I remember back in high school, I went to the same high school my brothers went to, and swear to God, it was the same turf my brothers played on.
no.
And I remember one day I made a cut on it in 7-on-7 in the summer. I made a cut, I planted, and I didn't fall, but I felt the turf give way. Like, hold up. And then when it gave way, I went back to the spot to look, and I saw, like, it was like maybe that much of carpet, that much. And I saw concrete. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is all between that and my head hitting the ground.
Bro, and they're all worried about, like, now they're worried about all this stuff. Now we're like, dude, just falling over, you get a, head
you're gonna get knocked out. You're gonna get knocked out. So speaking of getting knocked out, we had 2 players of the games that they did some knocking out. They did some bull rushing, and we'll start with your pick. Go ahead with your pick.
Hey, I'm giving it to Dean Lowry, and here's the reason why. One thing that the Cincinnati Bengals, like, they got some big guards, and they have some again, it's just like everything else. Like, they're developing, right? They had a lot of problems last year.
Injuries.
Everyone thought they should pick up Sewell, who everybody was wrong. They should have picked up old boy from the Chargers, right?
Yeah.
They should have
in free agency.
Yeah. No. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the rookie. Slater. They should have picked up Slater. I told everybody who would listen, hey man, Slater's going to be the guy. It's not this Sewell kid. Not that Sewell's not going to have a good career, but he's way behind technically. But Slater is legit, right? They could have picked him up. They picked up Jamar Chase. I get why, but there was these big question marks. And, like, so at some point yesterday, Dean Lowry was like the only guy who figured out, wait a second, I can just bull rush these guys right into Burrow's lap, because they're really not that good, right? And and so for me, he had a huge impact on the game, maybe more so than anybody else in the defensive box, because he was very, very disruptive. Now, look, obviously Kenny Clark's doing some really nice things, and he's playing at a high level, and he's starting to do a little bit more of the pass rush. Like, he played a great game, but I haven't said Dean Lowry's name this year. And I was happy for him, because it's another guy where we need that guy to step up his game as a Green Bay Packers fan, because it's just only going to make that team so much better.
Yeah. I saw that late third quarter and all the fourth quarter, and then obviously overtime. That Dean, like, every other play, it was 94 getting his name called. Yep. And then I started watching the replay, and I'm like, oh, he's just walking them back. He's just straight up bull rushing, because the offensive linemen for Bengals they don't know how to stop it. They don't know how to just, get engaged and then maybe pull his jersey out just to get him off of that, or do something like lay him, because I've seen what y'all do to fight that, as offensive linemen. I've watched drills, I watched games, and to know that they didn't have that escape plan, like, oh my God, this dude bull rushing me. What I'm gonna do? He didn't know how to drop. And then they weren't dropping anchor. Something I know as a running back, dealing with big old linebackers. But my player of the game is gonna go to AJ Dillon, the big back out of BC. Played well and is complimenting Aaron Jones very well. This is gonna, this is going to help come later in the year when the game gets a little cold, when the weather gets a lot colder here in another month or so, and then getting into that playoff run. Having a dual threat run game and a guy whose hands are great off the backfield, he could catch the ball, and obviously I'll say one because of his weight, but it's not his weight, but he could definitely pick up the blitz. But he wants to. I mean, he wants to get back there and plug the A gap, plug the B gap, or the outside blitzer. He can do it. He has his physicals, but then also he wants to do it. And then Aaron Jones, he actually gets it done too, even though he's underweight, but he wants to do it. And that's the key. You gotta want to get in front of somebody and be a bulletproof vest, basically, for your quarterback or whoever you're blocking for. So AJ Dillon, solid game, catching the ball, running the ball, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast here. Other than, I would be like, young man, get your shoulder pads down, so I don't have to be putting the smelling salt under your nose when you go into the end zone because you almost got knocked out into the end zone. You're big guy, get behind. Don't take it for granted that those DBs, I say, like you mentioned earlier, those DBs know that you're coming and bringing the hammer every time. So you got to let them know that every time. It's got to be every time you hit somebody, you're sending a message. You got the weight behind you. You could do it. You're sending a message. So don't take a playoff because they won't, when they're hitting you. So, are getting to around the league, some big games and some big injuries to a lot of people. I know between, Seahawks and Rams game, Rams beat the Seahawks, but they lose Russell Wilson. I know at least a month, if not longer, because he got to get surgery for that ligament torn in his throwing hand, actually.
Yep.
And so that's a big loss for them. So, and then obviously a loss in their division. And that's a division, the NFC West, that's obviously, like we mentioned, I think we said last podcast, that they're going to beat each other. They're going to beat each other up out there on the West Coast.
Yeah, but you know what's crazy? If you start looking at that division now, and obviously Arizona's kind of in the driver's seat right now. But okay, so you got MVP candidate Arizona, MVP candidate
with Kyler.
Yeah, right.
Russell
in LA, right? Well, no, it's
in
Los Angeles, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Stafford's playing. Stafford's still playing.
Stafford.
Well, even though
and on defense with Aaron Donald.
Yeah, of course. They got a young guy coming up now. Trey Lance is going to start playing for San Francisco.
Yep.
So if you're looking at it from Seattle standpoint, and who knows, does Russell want to be there? But are they going to let him cook? Just complain about your lineman? Like
right.
I can tell you as a former offensive lineman, like he didn't make a lot of friends in my circles this last year, complaining about their blocking and whatnot, right? But
of course,
you kind of look at it from Seattle's standpoint now, and they've kind of gone through their cycle, right? They got a lot of contracts out when he was still a rookie. Now they had to pay him. All those guys are old or gone, right? The Legion of Boom are gone. We talked about it last week. Like, they're not sitting in a great spot right now because they don't really have they don't have a dominant offensive line. They don't have a dominant running back. They have a couple good receivers, obviously. Yep. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are incredible. Yep. Bobby Wagner is really the guy on defense now, where I point to okay, because I know Jamal Adams, I loved him when he was playing for New York, and I think he's a tough guy. But last year, he was on highlight reels for everybody else's team for missing tackles last year and blowing coverage. Yep. So then they brought him up near the line, and he's rushing, and he gets a bunch of sacks. And I'm not going to dismiss that because that is a skill. Even if they call your number, you still got to make the play. Yes. But now we're talking about we're going to pay him a ton of money. If I'm Seattle, I'm thinking wait a second, we got to have somebody who can be more than just a box player and somebody who's coming off the line. This guy's got to be able to play coverage because we don't really have anybody pass rushing right now. So I would be interested to see what Pete and then John Schneider, who's obviously Green Bay Packers family, and we all love John. It'd be interesting to see what they do this next probably 6 to 9 months as far as how they finish out the season and the decisions they make next year. Because when I look at it, I'm looking at God, man, you got a lot of good quarterbacks in that league now, or in that division. Yes. You got a lot of good teams in that division, and you might be Russell Wilson is not the difference maker anymore that he was in that division for years and years and years, right? Those guys are catching up or have over surpassed.
Yeah, and speaking of Russell, just his play style, I think defenses, players, and defensive coordinators are now used to that play style. Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson running around, like you say, scramble drill in the pocket. Teams are now game ready for that. We saw that with the Chiefs game and the Bills this past weekend, or last night, or last evening. So the Chiefs the Bills beat the Chiefs 38-20. So you see that defense, I saw I was watching some of the highlights and they showed on the bottom line, it said the Bills made this defense to defend against the Chiefs offense. Mm-hmm. And that is obviously Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, and then Mahomes. And then the run game, Edwards-Helaire and any running back there that filters in to that offense, because we know Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid have done an outstanding job of what they got weapon-wise. They got probably the most volatile weapons of offensive players in the NFL. But the problem was up until now is now defenses didn't know what to do, how to cover them. Just let them catch the balls in the field, but then red zone get tight, but then you still get torched because you got Pat Mahomes running around like a banshee, like Russell Wilson. And so now you're seeing that, as we talk about that parity in college football, parity in competition. Now you're seeing that parity where defenses are catching up to how to slow them down. Basically, I remember before I got here, and I remember, I think it might have been Leroy mentioned when Barry was playing, Barry Sanders, mm-hmm. They would say, just stay in one place. He's going to come back to you. Don't run after him.
Okay, AG, because I was there. That was my rookie year.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Here's what they really said. Okay, they'd be walking through the locker room, through the training room.
I want to hear this.
And listen. First of all, Barry Sanders, I've told you, he's like the most special football player I've ever seen. He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
They would just be, hey, don't be scared now. You're gonna miss. It's okay. Don't be scared now. Take a shot. Don't be. But it was literally, don't be scared. Don't be scared, because they were because he was dropping 200, 250, or 230 Easy. Every time we saw him for like 2 years, man, like 4 games, he was dropping 200 yards every game. And don't be scared. You just got to take a shot. Hey, if you don't take a shot, I'm not going to get mine. Hey, don't be scared now. You're going to miss. It's okay. And it was always this, like, dude, it was always the safety. It was so funny though, because you're just like, these guys, it's like we always talk about the Larry Allen flu. For like defensive linemen, like, I got to play Larry this week. Oh, I don't want him to kill me. Like, man, my shoulder hurts or something.
Man,
Barry Sanders, one of those guys, man. Like, I think I pulled my hamstring. Like,
man, my hamstring's sore. Oh man,
don't be scared.
And that's what Pat Mahomes was. Yeah, that's what Pat Mahomes was for his first couple of years, first 3 years, all the way, Super Bowl, they or AFC Championship game. They lose to the Patriots. Next year, they go all the way. They win. Next year, this past year, they go all the way, but lose to Tampa Bay. So, yeah, he was that. So now everybody's caught up to that. And so you then go down the list of the big games this weekend. So in the division, we got the Lions almost getting a win. But I know you're going to talk about Mr. Campbell, the head coach there, to the Vikings, losing 19-7. So that puts the Detroit Lions, I believe it was that 4-0, 5. 0-4 or 0-5,
man. 0-5, like the losing streaks, like hitting record numbers on the back end because of last year too. And
right,
we were talking about this off air. Yeah, it's tough because you see Dan shows a ton of emotion, and Dan's an emotional guy, right? And he loves what he does.
Player's coach, right?
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's just I think it's always unfortunate that you show that side of you to the media, right? Because now it's a story. Like, it didn't need to be a story, because that was for the team. That emotion was for the team, and I just think it's unfortunate. And then the other thing, it's a reality in the NFL. It's professional. This is a business, a very, very competitive business, and
yes,
everyone's saying like, they're going to rally and Dan, they're going to play. They know that Dan loves them and they're going to play for him. It's like, bro, they were playing for him already.
Yeah,
like they're not gonna play harder now because he was crying. It's just one of those deals where there's things that takes things to win in the NFL. One is talent, right? And 2 is execution, right? There's a litany of things, but I think somewhere along the top has got to be talent and execution, right? And like nowhere in there is like whether or not I'm playing for, like, I don't know. You and me are different probably than a lot of guys, but like, I've never played for a coach. Like, I love coaches, and I might not like coaches, but it has no effect on what emotionally I'm bringing to the game and what kind of focus I'm bringing to the game. Now, I know people that do have that issue, but I'm just saying, like, it's hard for me to speak on because it's unfamiliar to me. I'm just like, am I ready to play or not? Right? It doesn't have anything to do with how emotional you're showing, right? Like, remember Dick Vermeil? Shit, Dick Vermeil cried all the time, man. And it was just part of his. He was like, "Hey, man, I'm a crier. What do you want?" And everybody loved him. It is what it is. But
yeah, different. I did. So back in college, when I was at Nebraska, had Tom Osborne. That was a coach I played for. because the way he could get us motivated and have us breathing fire without saying one cuss word. After my, halfway through my freshman year, I realized that, and I respected him for that, because I'm like, at that time I've been through little league football, baseball, basketball, and every coach dropped a 4-letter word, to either get you going or berate you, correct you. And it was, it was normal. It was the norm.
Mm-hmm.
To have him for 3 years, I was there. Not one swear word, but to do things, to say things to get us ready to play, was like impressive. We were looking. I was like, did he say something? Oh, no. He would be like Mother Teresa or Malarkey, or hey, you know what, guys, we were having a bad day. When he said that, he was mad. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. But then I get drafted, and I'm back to my little league ways. Like, okay, these coaches, I get this.
I was gonna say, like, and I wonder, but you understand too, right? Like in the NFL, we're talking about grown men making money with families, and that's where it changes for me. Like, yeah, I probably had some coaches,
and that's where it changed for me too. That's where it changed.
Yeah. So coaches in college, coaches in high school, where you have different feeling towards, because it's a different point in your life. I'm just saying at this level, I think it's tough. That's all.
Yeah. So when I got,
I'm not saying it's a bad thing either. I'm just saying I don't know what if it moved dial.
It's not a bad thing, because it's just, if a coach has that in their, if that's how they coach, that's how they coach.
Yep.
Period. And you got to respect, even because they got to know themselves as a coach, because we're coaches now pretty much. So you got to know yourself and how you react, and you got to let your player know, or they're just going to see it because it's going to come out. But yeah, once I got drafted into the NFL, and for the teams I was on, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Texans, it was very much a norm. But like you said, now for me, like kind of like you, I was self-motivating myself, regardless of what the coach said. What I say, that if anything, other people I played for was y'all, my teammates, because I knew I had to show up. If I didn't show up, I was gonna hear it from y'all. Y'all gonna be like, "What's going on? What's wrong?" Get your head out your butt.
Passion is the best if passion helps you get your point across, right?
Yes.
Passion makes a difference if it helps you get your point across. Otherwise, I just don't know if it's valuable.
True. Yeah, if it because you're just passionate all the time, eventually players gonna be like, why is he so upset now? Why is he crying now?
Right.
What happened?
You crying, bro?
It's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday. What happened? So again in the division, Bears get another victory. Justin Fields got beat up again. He's getting hit hard. He'll learn his lesson, or the line is going to block for him, one of the two. But they beat the Raiders 20-9. And the Raiders are looking, they started off fast. They got that win, Monday Night Football week 1 against Baltimore. And they've been winning. It's just kind of been, up and down. A lot of mistakes from the opposing team in the East game to get them that win. But now they played up against a team where you saw Cleo Mack, like, I'm getting in his backfield.
Right.
He was doing the ET stunts or doing his own thing, getting back there. And now he's showing up, and just enough offense. And we all, I think, watching, and this. I mean,
that's the first round draft pick too, right, bro? That's the first round draft pick for Alabama, Alex Leatherwood, right?
Yeah,
right tackle.
Yeah. But now, that defense is playing because they have an offense now.
Yeah.
And you and me both know, as players,
they have hope, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Since when Cleo Mack got there, obviously Bears fans like, oh yes, we got the best defensive end / linebacker in the NFL. He's gonna have all, and he's gonna do him. But I told people sitting in the stands when that happened, I remember that first year, it was the Monday night game where he lit it up. He was in Lambeau, he got the sack, he had the fumble return. Mm-hmm. He almost won the game literally by himself. But what happened? No Bears offense. And Aaron could get out there. That's when Aaron, he tweaked his knee and came back and won the game on one leg. He hit the hit the one deep pass slant to Randall Cobb, and game was over, and they win by a touchdown or 2-3 points. And so now stuff that we knew as players, that I don't care how good your defense is. They could be the number 1 defense in the NFL or a top 10 defense. But if you have no offense, to where that offense takes some time off the clock, where that defense can simply recover, get rested, get a series where it's a long 15-play offensive series, that defense is going to be mediocre by mid-season if they're not scoring the points and drain the clock time off that clock. So now they got that offense, and just hopefully Justin Fields can stay healthy, because I watched some of the highlights and he was getting blown up. He hyperextended his knee. So Matt Nagy is trying to explain that, making sure. And I say he shouldn't miss. I've had plenty of those as a runner, and it happens. It's going to be sore as hell. I just know that much. It's just sore. It hits the hamstring. It hits the MCL of the pain area that lights up. But he could still be in the quarterback, and being the young player that he is, he could get back on that field next week. Just hoping for that bye week real soon. And then the game that surprised me. I mean, it surprised me when I was adding it to the run of show. The Eagles beat the Panthers. I forgot to put the score in there. What was the score here? It's up here, 21-18. I'm like, what? I'm like, I for sure, because I know Eagles have been struggling. They got a good team. Got Jalen Hurts. They got the wide receiver that won the Heisman last year from Alabama. And they got a run game. They got an okay defense, but it's just something. And then Panthers have just been hot coming into this week. They've been playing solid football. They were 3-1 going into this game. And now when I put it, like you heard me, when I pulled this up, I said, what?
Yeah.
I was like, Philly won? I did not expect that.
Well, if you at face value, you'd say, okay, listen, Philly's got to, if you're saying, Mike, how could Philly win? Philly's got a really good defense. They are a team that could hold a Sam Darnold led Carolina Panthers to, 2 touchdowns and a field goal, 3 touchdowns, right? They can hold them somewhere around 20. I'm just saying that's possible, right? And I don't know if Christian McCaffrey was in or out. I don't think he played this
he was
week.
out because he's on my fantasy.
So yeah,
he was out.
There you go. So you just go, okay, well, he's out. So I can close my eyes and say we can hold him to 20, right? And now you have Jalen Hurts, who, while he's still developing, I don't know if Philly knows if he's the guy or not.
But still
he is a dual threat quarterback against a team that has been beating the brakes off of quarterbacks who stick in one spot, right? They're bringing free rushers. They're bringing guys to the spot. The Carolina Panthers, when they pass rush, they cross face. They make him get off the spot. I love the way they rush, right? And so the second guy usually does cleanup. But with a guy like that, when now you have RPOs, you have options, and the guy's a very viable runner. Again, you can just kind of go, well, shoot, man, if we're going to keep this thing tight, like they could probably drop a couple. Maybe he runs for a few, exactly what happened. They keep it close, and Jalen Hurts makes a couple big plays with his legs. And hey, man, the Eagles are fighting. I love it. I think the NFL is better when the Eagles are fighting. When the Eagles are in the conversations, like, because they got such a great fan base. Like I'm always like, I always want the Eagles to be doing well. That's just me.
Yeah, I say this. I definitely have a couple Eagle fan stories. It was the years we went out there together. 03, I believe we went out there they came to us in 03 regular season, but I think it was like 04 we went out there for regular season too. Or in 02 we went out there in 02. It was almost like every other year. It's actually those 3 years in a row. It was 02 to 04 we went out there. And the Philly fans, man, I would not go to a Phillies game unless I'm in I'm getting special treatment, preferential treatment. I'm going to the box because Philly, the Eagles fans, before, they probably better now because they won a Super Bowl, but at that time they were far from the Super Bowl.
They had a lot of hate in their heart.
A lot of hate. I remember warm up. What was it? I think it was the 01 year we went out there, and I'm warming up pregame. They're like, this is the playoff game. I take that back. It's the 03 game playoff. And they're like, Ahman Green. I'm like, so I'm taking my head. Yeah, what's up? He's like, you suck.
You're so nice, dude.
You're gonna have 4 fumbles. Brett's gonna throw 6 interceptions. And then I'm like, I was like, what? And they like, you gonna break your legs too? I'm like, So I go, okay, what's gonna happen first? I'm gonna break my legs. I'm gonna have a 6 fumble. They're like, man, shut up, F you.
Yeah, that's right. We're 2 cases in.
Right.
It's 11 a.m., man. We're 2 cases in already. Back off.
We've been going hard since last night.
Oh, bro.
This is a playoff game in Philadelphia.
They are they're self-loathing. They're just the best fans ever. Like that. Remember that game actually in that 4th and 26 game?
Yeah.
They went from booing us to actively booing the Eagles for like a quarter and a half to
Yes,
booing
yeah.
us again. I was like, I've never seen anything like it in my whole life, man. It was like
Amazing.
it was like sitting in the Roman Coliseum and you weren't sure which gladiator to fight for, like cheer for, man. Like, no, you kill. No, you kill. Oh, it was insane, bro. Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down, dude.
Dude, that's how they do it. And they go, well,
Those guys are the best.
they're the best. I mean, they're the best when they've earned that their stadium that they go and cheer for their team has a courthouse in it. Okay. That's when you know those fans are real about their team. They got a judge and jury and bailiff in that joint, okay, in Lincoln Financial and at the old Veteran Stadium back in the day. So just for just for fans listening to podcasts that didn't know that about Philadelphia Eagles lore, yes, it was a courthouse in old Veteran Stadium, and they brought it over when they built Lincoln Financial, I believe in like 01 and 02, 03, or whenever they built that stadium. So, all right, Mike, we to your favorite part of the podcast, trench warfare. So get us started, buddy. What you got going?
Here's a couple observations. First of all, we missed Myers. He's a good player. We missed him, right? We missed him on double teams.
Big missing. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if like if the pace of play or anything changed, but you could see we and I like Patrick. Like it's not like I don't like Patrick, but Myers, you could just tell Myers is a good player. Here's what happened yesterday, and I think it was because Myers wasn't there. 70, right? Was not nearly as physical as he had been playing. The O-line just did not set the tone like they've been setting the tone. And again, we talked about it before. A lot of it was game plan because listen, when the Bengals had 6 in the box, we could run the ball. Right. So I think a lot of it was game plan, but you got to remember when we talk about the psychology of the sport, when you're drop back pass and scat protection, 5-step drop, 7-step drop, and all of a sudden, like your whole game is now, all right, this guy's running at me. He's a better athlete. He's trying to beat me. And if he gets to Aaron, I'm going to look like a fool. Like your mindset over the course of a game shifts. Right. And we just didn't like, to me, there's not as many finishes.
You're talking about Royce Newman there.
Yeah, there's just not as much movement. I still love the left side of the line. I think he's doing great. Like Runyon is making, like he's putting money in the bank right now. Like equity is up on Runyon. I don't know what happens whenever he comes back, but if he's got to be in the lineup. The kid can flat out play. I don't know if they move him to right guard. Like I don't know what they do because Jenkins can move anywhere, but that kid's got to be in the game because he brings a physicality and demeanor to the game. And I think it's so important for this team because on any given Sunday we have Jones, we have Dillon, we have all these weapons. We have a running game if we want it. It's just sometimes we got to make sure that we want it. Right. Yeah. And I think that was kind of the big show for me on the offensive side. I don't know. Is that kind of what you thought?
Yeah. Cause like when like your last comment there, you know, you got to know you want the run game. And you don't just run the ball out the formation because you're setting up another pass out of this formation. You got to have the players in position. Like you said, St. Brown should not be coming over for the crackback block when we already know his effort is not 100%, 90% of the time, 95% of the time. Bring Lazard over, bring Tunyon in. We know those guys are going to make those tackles. I mean, those them blocks, because obviously those blocks gets the play started. You don't hit certain blocks in the early power toss play. Those early blocks, the play's dead. You know, our defensive lineman getting in penetration. Cincinnati had that on some of them plays. So it's Mark, coaching staff knowing, making sure the players are in the right positions to basically win their play.
Yeah. And listen, when we play with the 2 tight end set, I mean, I think Mercedes Lewis is still one of, if not the best blocking tight ends we have. I think all the tight ends are doing a good job, and they were effective today in holding off their defensive ends, outside linebackers. Like we got edges, we got backside cutoffs. Like they're running the wham for like 80 when 81 comes in, he can't block, so they wham him on the backside. It's like that's like the standard play in the NFL. It's like they don't think a tight end can block. They're like, that's all right, man. We'll just cut you backside. You can throw on the defensive end.
Yeah, we're gonna give you the hardest block to do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but it's the hardest, but it's also the easiest, right? Because you just got to cut a guy, but then you also got to you might get kicked in the head. So it's like it's
right. He's gonna be mad at you.
Yeah, it's gonna be exactly. But when again from the perspective of offensive lineman, like what they're doing to you got to look at what they're doing to Devontae Adams. like they're trying to set him up for success as often as possible. And what they did yesterday from the Packers perspective is like they spent a lot of time having him changing zones on the field. So if like you cut the field into like thirds, and I'm talking about like horizontally, they'll start him in one and run him across the other because they want to get him on different guys at different points, right? So he can kind of get lost in the mix. Or if they're playing man on him, it's like, man, no one's keeping up with him if we're going to make him run on these big routes or these shallow crosses. So those things take time. And again, when you're just doing these 5 and 7s, and sometimes Aaron's back there for 5, 6 seconds,
and
right?
And then he's backpedaling when
it just feels different in that game where I thought we could have dominated up front more than we did. But now that I'm kind of talking it through, it's like part of it was probably the game plan, because it's not like we didn't have success on the ground for a large part of the game when we were actually trying to make hay.
But, and it just tells the other side of the ball. Bengals came with their game plan defensively. I was watching a lot of ET stunts with a 96 and 94 coming in there and getting that penetration early and later in the game, especially once the game went into overtime, and we know why that did. But also I want to bring up real quick how one of our old guys, Gizzy, and what he had, what he was sporting. I've been noticing.
We talk about setting the tone, man. If anybody's setting the tone on the Green Bay Packers now, it's their strength and conditioning coach, Chris Gizzy, man. He has got one of the strongest stashes in the league right now.
That thing was real.
Yeah, here's the deal. Gizzy was an Air Force Academy guy. So I used to play against him, and he was like a legend at the school. Like,
I remember
he was one of those guys, like, no matter who made the tackle, the whole defense would be like, yeah, Giz. Like, when you got up from the play, like, dude, Giz didn't even make the tackle. But yeah, Giz, get him, Giz, because they were just like in love with this dude. And he was our teammate, man. Like, he's an incredible guy, but he is rocking this stash. I mean, he looks like, if you're like, hey, man, I want to chisel out of stone like the ideal strength coach and his mustache, like, this thing is just phenomenal. He set the tone on the sideline, man. I loved it.
Yep. I remember meeting him for the first time in the weight room, and he was balancing on a physio ball, squatting. I was like, okay, I like this.
He was doing dips with so Bloke, Mark Lavatt was the strength coach. He was doing dips with Bloke on his back one day. I was pretty strong.
I think you told me that. I remember.
I was like, God damn, what are we doing over here?
I'm like, good. When I saw him doing the squat, and I'm not sure I think he had the bar on his back.
Probably.
He was doing back squats on a small physio bar. I said, that dude's strong.
It's funny, on the other side of the ball, when the Bengals were out there, I think their offensive line came to play for sure. Right. One thing that happened is their tight ends made our defensive ends think too much early in the game, right? Yeah. And what I mean by that is they were hesitating. They were squaring up their stance. Like, Gary squared up a stance a couple of times where you're like, dude, you don't have to do that. You can just attack him, right? Or we're attacking edges instead of pressing them back into the hole. Or they're preventing us just by body presence. They're preventing us from like getting a good run at the tackle, because in my estimation, and it showed up. It definitely showed up.
It did.
But in my estimation, like, our defensive ends are way more, way higher class than their tackles. And it goes back to like, man, we got to press that pocket a little bit more. And we had opportunities. And again, that's why Dean Lauer was my player of the game, because it was almost like he put his flag in the ground. I was like, no, what, guys, let's just start bull rushing these guys because they're really not that good.
Basically. But you do that because you put them tight ends there because you need help. Zach Taylor in that offense, he's the offensive play caller and the game planner, and he knew right now, okay, let me put this little accent in here. So obviously, because they got some really good defensive ends, even though Zadarius out for a while, but Preston Smith is still in there. Rashad Gary is waking up. He's kind of getting into development to this game. And so let's slow them down a little, because if not, Burrow's going to have a tough day. And so that's a good accent. That's no different than, along with the tight ends, you got the running backs chipping, the defensive ends or the outside linebackers before we go out on our routes. You throw that, running back, make sure you chip. This week I remember weeks when we had a good defense. When we played against the Tennessee Titan, when the freak was there, Javon Curse, it was high emphasis on chip blocks all day. Even on a scat protection, it was like, hey, coach, I got to get to the flat. It's scat. They're like, Ahman, just if you could give us a shoulder. I was like, all right. I can help out with that.
Here's the deal with that though, right? So when you're so fans out there, when you're thinking about chipping, right? The most effective chip for a defensive end is from the outside in if they're on the line of scrimmage. In other words, if the tight end's got like a 2-yard split or a 1.5-yard split, and that defensive end doesn't know where to line, so he lines up inside, like outside the left tackle, but inside the tight end. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, every once in a while, and you know who did this the best was Antonio Gates. Every once in a while, he would absolutely launch that dude, right? And now every play, you're kind of like looking and it slows you down. They're not doing that here. And so what always befuddles me is from an outside linebacker defensive rush in, whatever perspective, is if I've got a guy that I know can't block me anyways, and he's on the line of scrimmage, dude, I'm just taking my same angle. I'll just run right through his shoulder for the times that he is there, and the times that he's not, I'm going to take my jump. And this game, they were like squaring up. They're kind of reading it. It just took a little time for us to get going. But again, I think Dean Larry put the flag in the ground. I was like, wait a second, guys, let's not overcomplicate this. We can bull rush these guys all day.
Like, oh, look what we can do. We can do this. All right. I think are we done here? You done in here? All right. Let's get on to get off my lawn. And sorry this week. I know I had one, but I couldn't think of it. But I was packing and I was on the highway. It was National Lampoon it. So I don't have one, but I'm gonna piggyback with you on some of these and help give an explanation on the last one here. Oh my! But you can start this off.
Listen, the first thing to get off my lawn is we never did this back then. So when you talk about defensive rotation, you have now basically you have your first 4 and your second 4 that come in the game, and they usually come in a wave, right? Yeah. And so it used to be that your first 4 would start if you were like on the 10 out to the 40, you'd start that drive because we want to pin them back. We want good field position. And then if they got going and it was like they were they got 3, 4 plays, 4 or 5 plays in a row, you'd put in your second defensive line. Right. And then if we got to the 40 going in and it was near in field goal range, you put your studs back in because you need to stop. I'm seeing, and it happened in this game, and it happens with the Packers, and it drives me insane, but it happens all over the league. They're starting drives with the 2s, and you don't understand the fall off between 1s and 2s in the NFL at the defensive line, except for in a few teams. The fall off between 1 and 2 is so dramatic that for me, if I was an offensive coordinator and I was playing, I'm going to say 30 out of 32 teams. I can't even think of one that would not be a drop off, but there's a couple teams out there I know they're playing a lot of defensive linemen. But I would literally, anytime like their defensive line switched to the 2s, I'd run all my best stuff. I would run all my best stuff right there. Nothing conservative. If I wanted to go deep, I'd go deep then. If I wanted to run power, I'd run power. I would run all my best stuff, double teams, blow them off the line, because the difference is so great. And what's happening is when you watch these games, like sometimes they'll make plays. And again, these are all pros. Like I'm not saying anybody's garbage. I'm just saying the drop off is real. And what happens is, unfortunately, like you give the other team momentum that you didn't need to give them. Like you're giving the Bengals a first down that they didn't deserve because you just don't have the right guys in. And it's kind of like, it's old school for me, man. It's like the players play the first team plays as long as they can. Then, if you need to blow, you go out. But like, dude, if you were just out sitting out for 5 minutes, man, get yourself back in there. Get off my lawn.
Right. And it's that momentum. You lose that momentum, it's sometimes hard to get back, even when you got the ones in there, back in there, So be careful. You gotta, they're playing Russian roulette right there with switching out. And I see that sometimes too. And I just I didn't know why, but now I kind of listening to you now. It makes sense. And we got the next one in here, celebrating incomplete passes.
Oh, dude, you know how it is, man. It's like we talk about this. It's like it's like Bill Belichick, do your job, right? Do your job, bro. Can you imagine? I mean, it's bad enough we have the end zone video thing with the turnover. I like it. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I like that they do it. But I'm just old and bitter about the other, like not celebrating, being able to taunt and everything, like not being able to taunt, dude. Like, but this thing, like this celebrating passes. So now, or excuse me, celebrating incompletions. Now we're seeing, and we've seen it forever, I guess, but because it's like they've taken away. I guess I'm not complaining that they're celebrating passes. I'm complaining that you can't taunt. And I'm complaining that you can't talk trash. And I'm complaining that you can't look at a guy after you make a good play. And so now they're like, I knocked the ball out of your hand and I got to like turn over here and go crazy. It's like, dude, it's just nothing we do makes any sense anymore. Right. It's like, it's like they keep on it's just like the rule changes, man. I feel bad for the refs. Like you make a rule change, like the NFL makes a rule change, or, a body of humans that are not actually playing the game are changing the game. And then they're like, all right, refs, implement. And then everyone gets pissed at the referees. Like everyone's pissed off every week. Referees are terrible. Man, I could not be a referee. You know how hard it is to be a referee when you don't even know what the rules are?
Right.
I had a coach one year. We ran fullback dive against the New Orleans Saints. I'm playing the Carolina Panthers. Mike Mazur is the coach. We run fullback dive. We're killing them, right? This is the Hurricane Katrina. They're displaced. It's like at the end of the year. Like we're going to the playoffs. They want to go home, like to their families.
Yeah.
So Brad Hoover's getting like 6 yards a pop on fullback dive, man. But the damn linebacker keeps making the play because Hoover's not cutting off us. He's just running where he wants to run, and we're just dumping him in the nose tackle as long as we can. So I come in the next day, and he's like, I have minuses on this fullback. He's like, man, you got to get off on the linebacker. I'm like, linebackers got to come to me. That's on Hoover. He's like, no, and he got mad. I mean, he's like throwing stuff, angry. And I was like, whoa. So I like calmly, I was like, hey, man, he's like, why are you so mad, man? He goes, because I don't know what the damn rule is. But he didn't say damn. He said every other word you could think of. We're throwing pins and shit. But the bottom line is like sometimes when you just don't understand, that's an easy play, right? But when you don't know, when you're getting told upstairs that you're doing something wrong, or you're getting told upstairs like the rule ain't the rule anymore.
Right.
Man, I just don't know how these refs do it.
Oh yeah. Oh man. I know. I look at some plays that a referee throws a flag and the player gets in his face. The player's like, like, what's up? And I'll be like, I say, if I was that referee, I'll be like, bro, you better get out my face.
Oh, AG, you imagine you were Ed Hockley had guns. You think Ed Hockley had tight t-shirt, AG? You see AG out there with a tight t-shirt and you sew that thing together? Woo!
Yeah. I'll be like, bro, you better get out my face, man. I'm dealing. You gotta see what I'm dealing with in New York, man. They got 100 rule changes every day that I gotta adjust. Okay, I'm a comic book guy, so I can help you through this one. This next one. So I can't wait till you talk about this.
This isn't a get off my lawn. I don't even know if this is a social commentary. 2 things happened this week. One, I'm driving down. I was working some players, so I'm driving down to Houston on Friday, and I'm listening to Chappelle's new the closer on Netflix.
Yeah,
and I'm reading like all these, all these groups are angry with him, so I check it out. And opinions, but it's he really goes after the
LGBTQ
community, right? He goes after him, and he's been battling with him for years. It sounds like,
and
it was one of those. If I won't spoil it, but this is like back in the day when Sam Kinison went after the gay community, and he like wouldn't let it go. And it kind of, I'm not saying it ruined his career, but it was like, man, you're really funny. You can talk about some other stuff. You don't need to like take this all so personally.
Right.
You're kind of like, they were getting mad at him, but like you're kind of doing the same thing that you're getting mad about. But anyways, so that happened. And then like as a knee-jerk reaction, which I'm sure it wasn't, but it just came out like the next day. I see DC Comics is like, Superman's going to be gay in the DC Comics. I'm like, I read DC Comics like Superman's going to have a romantic relationship with another man. I'm like, now we're going to make Superman and my first thought was like, was this because of Dave Chappelle? Like, I didn't know.
Right.
Oh man.
Hey, yes. I think I know why. I know right now. Obviously, this is the sign of our times, because obviously everything since 2020 has been changing over, and then making sure this is the inclusion aspect of popular life, of pop culture, basically. And one place where pop culture sets the tone is in the comic book world. DC, Marvel, because they got Batwoman a couple years ago was lesbian, and she has her girl, so when you see this at the comic book level, for everybody that doesn't read books, you'd be like, hold up, really? You'd be like, wait a minute. But it's a tone setter. It sets the tone for people that, like myself, who read books and that read comic books, that understand what people got to understand as normal, getting to normal. getting used to something normal in the world that we've been in, because obviously dealing, finding out stuff, dealing with stuff, understanding, and just having an understanding that this is what it is. But when you hear it for the first time that Superman is now gay in a series or a story arc, I'm looking at it now. So it's gonna it's gonna basically throw you for a loop when you first hear it, because you go back to the 80s, with Christopher Reeves on the big screen and through the books through the years. So yeah, it's bringing in what we're living and now fictional life, trying to relate to it as well, to get everybody to kind of get in on the boat, on the train, and understand this is life right now.
I'm not into comic books like you are, but I could say definitively, if I had the opportunity to sit in the room with the writers for the episode that he comes out to Lois Lane, I would love to be a part of that. I would love to write part of that script. I'd be so happy if I could sit in the room and just how is Superman coming out to Lois Lane? You know what I mean? Like that.
Yes, that would be a fly on the wall moment.
Oh my God. That's definitely like a couple of things in 2021 I'd love to do, and that would definitely be one of them, man.
So here it is. So yeah, it says DC. I'm looking at one of the headlines, just a headline. It says DC Comics reveals the latest Superman as bisexual. So he's bisexual. So he's not 100% gay. He's bisexual in the new issue. Alliteration of Superman, bisexual, DC Comics. Yep. So that is what he is. So
and
he
these
likes
comics
both.
that you read, a lot of them are pretty graphic, right?
Oh yeah, no, it is.
I mean,
yes.
Listen,
this
could
rated.
Man. It's just one of those things where, like, whatever, live and let live. It doesn't, whatever's clever with me, but
it's just a new.
It's just one of those things. I was like, man, Superman. How could Superman? And then I started thinking, like, this would be what an episode if he could come out like in a comic. He comes out as gay to Lois Lane. Like Lois has been like, wait a second, you take off your glasses and you're Superman, and now this, like, oh my God, like I never knew you at all.
You're silly. But no, he's bisexual for one. He's not 100% like I said. But yeah, it is that. And I think the writers in this is just like, they know, comic book writers know that a lot of the pop culture is affected through them. They kind of guide the tide. And I mean, I'll be honest, like, I've been to Comic Cons in San Diego, at the big one. That's the big one every year I go to. And you just don't imagine, like, what I see out there beyond the comic book fans like myself dressed up in the costumes. I mean, even the people, I say there, even the group of people that are super religious in the church, they're against comic books because, they're out there protesting, saying Jesus took our life, took his life, or he lost his life for us, because they feel that is a threat, because they say there's more belief in comic books than it is the Bible or certain religions. I never even knew that. And I'm like, I wasn't raised in the church. I say more of a spiritual person growing up. But so when I saw that for the first time at Comic-Con, I was like, oh my God, the church is battling Marvel and DC too. I'm like, what, the French toast? Like, what's going on? I'm like, dang.
What you got to tell the audience, like, when you go to Comic-Con, what do you dress up as?
Oh, I dress up as Batman. That guy right there. Not. I actually got that. I still got that.
You got that all day shirt, like all day, like you go there because people expect it from you, right?
Every day, I'm Batman. Like, actually, people know me as that. Like, I'm humble. I'm like humble and excited. Like, oh yeah, you pay attention. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, because the fans, them comic book fans is real. So
you go Adam West Batman with that old gray suit, man.
No. I actually go Michael Keaton Batman. His Batman suit.
That's the real one, right? I like that one. I like it. He had long ears too. I like that one.
Yeah.
You know which one I never liked was because Val Kilmer had nipples. Remember Val Kilmer had nipples on the Batman suit?
Val Kilmer and George Clooney. Those were the worst.
Was it It might have been George Clooney,
both.
Right?
No,
was it both? Okay.
Well, in terms of the ones with the nipples, it was Val. You're right. It was only Val. But in terms of the worst cinematic big screen Batman acting jobs, those two were the worst. And George Clooney apologized to the fan base in an interview I found online. So at least I don't know about Val, if he ever apologized for being a bad Batman on the big screen. But that is our podcast for this week, week 5. Next week we got the Bears. Oh, it's Bears week, Mike.
That's right.
Bears week. I'll tell.
It doesn't feel like Bears week now because like we're kind of rooting for that quarterback.
Right, we want Justin to win.
Yeah,
to play well
for the quarterback, but not this week, I guess.
Yeah, I say I'll give. I don't know if you have one, put you on the spot, but think about it. I'll tell mine first. My Bears week story. I remember it wasn't my first year. It's probably year. This was year 2 or 3. This was 01. It was 01. It was my second year, and during Bears week, and wasn't practice, wasn't at the stadium. I'm at home. I'm taking out the garbage on Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, and I'm not far. I lived in East De Pere. I still live in East De Pere, so I'm not far from De Pere High School, and school must have just let out. So I'm taking, it must be like 3 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock. I'm bringing the garbage cans to the curb. Actually, I'm going to grab them. Actually, they already picked up. And I see this car and it's full of kids, high school kids. And they just got out of school. And they're like, Ahman Green, oh, go Pack, go. There's like right in front of my house. And then as they got this side of my house, they're like, Bears still suck. I'm like, oh man. I was like, the fans they take it personal.
Oh,
that's what I found out. These fans take Bears week serious. I mean, if they were on the field with us, it would be too many fights on the football field because fans, they just probably want to punch another Bears fan in the face. And I'm like, it ain't that serious. They're like, Ahman, don't you just hate the Bears? I'm like, to be honest, no. I was like, I just want to win the game. I just want to come out with a victory.
We always thought that the Vikings were our like for us, the Vikings were the team that was better. So they were like our rivals
at that time. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. The Vikings were the rivals. The Bears and the Lions were like, we shouldn't lose to them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I remember so my foot, like the Bear, there's a story that that we can't share on this podcast, but it had to do with one of our fellow teammates having a problem relieving himself before the game.
Oh,
yeah. But the one that actually really stands out for me. So the first time I ever played in a game was at. Okay, so I'll give you guys. This is is embarrassing, but so my rookie year, when I say the like Santana Dotson, Gilbert, those guys hated me, man, because I didn't know what I was doing, but I played really hard. So it's like really bad combination.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but I'm like punching them, and they're like, dude, I'm just trying to like get through week 12, and I'm like, I'm going, and so. Mike Holmgren had told me at the beginning of the year because I had held out, blah, blah. He was like, F you, you're not playing. I'll see you next year. Tom Lovat was like, yeah, sorry, I'm not coaching you this year. Like, I get the guys ready to play. And so I was just like, Jeff Dellenbach and Frank Winters would throw me a bone every once in a while, like teach me how to do something or whatever. I just kind of watched them. But I worked hard enough that Mike came up to me and said, hey, listen, I really like the way you work this year. Like maybe I made a mistake about you, but I'm going to let you suit up and go to this game and blah, 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 blah. Because back then I get dumped on Friday. Friday they used to dump 4 guys. It was me, Jim Nelson, Matt Hasselbeck, and then sometimes it was Scott McGarrahan, sometimes it was somebody else.
Right.
And so I remember I went to the Chicago game. It was down there. It was towards the end of the year. And I think it was Marco like sprained his knee or something like that. And he's limping out of the game, and it's like 1st and goal, right? Okay. On the 1 or something like that. Uh-oh. So I don't know the playbook back here. I'm not even lying to you, man. Like I'm practice. I'm essentially practice squad.
Right.
So we run in, and I think Jeff Dellenbach's playing. So I run into the game, and like got my helmet on sideways and whatnot. And I run into the game, and they're like, Dellenbach's like saying something to me. I'm like, nah, man, we're going to this guy. So I like start arguing with him, right? So, and of course I'm wrong. But we ended up double teaming the guy, and I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly what happened, but all I remember was that I got rolled up on him. Like I think I like sprained my MCL or something. Like I hurt myself in this one play, and all I'm thinking in my mind is like, Marco, please God, don't let him come in right now because I can just fake it. Like for the series, we'll score a touchdown, and then I'll just kind of like, hey, and then jog off or limp off. Nobody will see it, right? Sure enough, man, literally Marco's like limping back onto the, I think it was Marco. I'm going to say it was Marco. It was either Marco or Joey. They're running back on, limping back onto the field. I'm like, oh no, because I cannot run. Like, I cannot run.
Oh my
So
God.
after this one play, I'm limping off the field like a loser. I'm just limping straight across, and then like I'll make a hard right at the sideline and get to the 25 or whatever where you're allowed to be.
Yeah.
So we win the game. Leroy Butler has a pick. We win the game. Everyone's like in the showers, happy and everything. Santana Dawson's like, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Ha! Like that's I'm like, oh damn.
I could see Santana. Oh man, that's funny. I could hear Santana saying that coming in. Lord have mercy. Hey, so that is the end of our podcast there. You can download us wherever you download your podcast, at Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any of those spots. And then we're on Twitter at On My Block is our Twitter handle, and you can find me at Ahman Green 30 on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook at Ahman Green. And Mike, let everybody know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, Facebook, just Mike Wall. Process to Perform on Instagram, and then Unrivaled ESS on Twitter. And yeah, I would hit us up with any question, any questions you have about the game, any questions you have about players, man. We'll answer them on here. We should probably get a viewer segment going, actually, man. Like a viewer's question segment. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. So also, we want the question. So when you download it, make sure you put in the feedback so we get those feedbacks, and rate us and review us. We love those. That keeps the shows coming for the next seasons to come. But yeah, we'll definitely think about doing a viewers question cast to get questions sent to us, and then we'll answer them for the whole whatever amount of time of questions that we have to spend that week. So everybody, hope you enjoyed the podcast, and see y'all next week.